The views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the host and or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Twilight Talk Radio, its advertisers, or affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the show. You are listening to Live Conversations with Tracy here on Twilight Talk Radio, where we are engaging, empowering, and living out loud. I'm so glad you are here to join me tonight. You can watch us live on Ustream right now under Twilight Talk Radio. We also can send you to our website where we are live, and you can watch us at twilighttalkradio.com. And those that are just listening, our call-in number is 909-726-7226. So, we're back. And if you notice, I have some guests in my studio. And our topic is quite appropriate because it is Black History Month. And so we are having an open discussion. You know, the title of the show, before I introduce the guests, I'll give you the audience an idea of the title of the show. And it's called Building Racial Stamina, an Open Discussion. So we have a panel of experts, of leading ladies in their community, and we also have a call-in guest as well. So how are y'all doing? Okay. We're going to have fun. Okay, I'm going to introduce everyone by name first, and then we'll go ahead and go over each other's bio. To my right, I have Jennifer. Oh, there goes my computer. Melee. We've been having quirky difficulties tonight, but to my right is Jennifer Melee. Did I say that wrong? Miele. Oh, see, that's a really good host. Jennifer, see, I'm the one that gets to make mistakes, so it's good. It's good. I got, you guys could be nervous without that, right? And then next to Jennifer, we have, I'm probably going to say it all wrong, too. Would you like to introduce your guest as well?
Mari Morales Rodriguez.
Mari Morales Rodriguez. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. And also, our listeners are going to hear another guest that is here for the show, and it's Holly Tempo. So we have, of course, moi, Jennifer, Mari, and Holly. So Jennifer, get the ball rolling and give us a little bit about yourself and your, just a brief description, your bio, and we'll go in order. Okay?
Okay, great. My name is Jennifer Miele. I am a psychiatric social worker in Los Angeles County, and I've worked in the criminal court system since 2002, focusing on mitigation, identification, and alternative sentencing for people struggling with mental illness. I volunteered for 2 years in the Peace Corps and worked as a teacher trainer at a school for autistic children as well. And in 2014, I raised over $11,000 for a drop in the bucket and traveled to Uganda to see the completed well. While in Uganda, I conducted interviews with students to document how the well changed their lives.
That's quite an amazing accomplishment, too. I remember when we were, Jennifer and I met actually through a mutual friends of ours, Melvin and Sherry Allen. We actually met through the group coaching. And I remember one of the first memories I have of you was you sharing the trip that you had to Africa and actually setting up, the well, and just that whole amazing experience was awesome. So that's one of my first memories of you. So I knew Jennifer was a special lady. Okay, and now go ahead, Mari.
Hello, my name is Mari Morales Rodriguez, and I am the founder of One for All OFA. I founded One for All in 2003, and I founded the organization to make a difference in the community, to make a difference in the students. And what we do is that we motivate the students to stay in school and to get good grades. And I am also a community leader in that I am happy to make a difference in the community and also in the world.
Another amazing woman. Oh, Holly, even though we can't see you, we definitely want to hear, a little bit about you. Will you let our listeners know as well?
Yes, this is Holly Tempo. I'm a visual artist and educator. I'm a faculty at Otis College of Art and Design in Los Angeles. I live and maintain an art studio in Inglewood, and I've been in the area for many years, and have been privileged to know many different kinds of people, and especially through my art career. Mm-hmm. And want to invite readers to check out a show that I'm in that's very relevant to the conversation we'll be having tonight at the Los Angeles Municipal Art Gallery at Barnesville Art Park. The show is called Skin, and it deals with race and culture.
Oh, wow. That sounds like it would be very interesting. What time is that show tonight?
That show actually is up through April. I think it's through mid-April, and then the gallery I think is open, weekday, Monday through Saturday, 9 to 5, something like that.
Okay, and could you repeat the gallery in case our listeners didn't hear?
Yes, it's Los Angeles Municipal Art Gallery, and it's located in the Barnesville Art Park.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to have to check that out. Sounds amazing. Mm-hmm. Have you seen it yet or no? No, not yet.
Oh, I have.
Okay. Stay with me, Jennifer. Jennifer's here reading, and I'm like, no. I have not. Oh, I love it. This is perfect. Okay. Oh, gosh. Thank you so much, Holly, for sharing that information and sharing a little bit about yourself. I think I have a very dynamic panel, and the subject that we're going to be touching on, with the title of our show, kind of focusing on building racial stamina and open discussion. It was derived actually from an article, and this is an article that I came across. Was it in June? Gosh. I think so. Yeah, it was in June. And an article that was on alternet.org, written by Dr. Robin DiAngelo. And it was the title of the article is 11 Ways White America Avoids Taking Responsibility for Its Racism. And, it just that title kind of struck me. I was like, oh, yes, this is going to be very interesting. And I shared it with Jennifer because she had expressed a desire to form a nonprofit organization to, deal with a lot of the internal racism that she has seen in a lot of her work and a lot of experiences that she has seen, that is something that, people are generally not comfortable talking about because, if I may say, quote unquote, white people, don't want to be labeled. They don't want to talk about, white privilege. They don't want to talk about how they learn, at an early age to be prejudicial or to be racist. And it's looked at, if you get labeled as a racist, you might as well be, labeled as the devil. So I thought it'd be a good idea to have like an open panel discussion about that and about other subjects. So I know Jennifer is so organized. She has an outline for us. So yeah. So I'm absolutely looking forward to see how we get started. So one of parts of this article here, it says the two most effective beliefs that prevent us, quote unquote, whites, from seeing racism as a system are, number one, that racists are bad, and number two, that racism is a conscious dislike. So those 2 points kind of stood out for me. I'm just going to briefly want to get some ideas about that from you ladies. And, my question was, the word conscious dislike. I often think, are we really conscious of what we're doing, what we're saying, what we're thinking? Or is this something unconscious that we learned somewhere along the lines? Or what I put down here is generational behavioral influence. So if you don't mind, I'm going to lead just with that question with the panel. Is there a notion, or is this idea that I have in my head relevant? Is there a general behavioral influence that people that are not, we'll say non-people of color, quote unquote, just for this topic, whites, is there such a thing as a general behavioral influence? What do you think? You, Jennifer.
I think it's some of it's behavioral, some of it is all of the information that we're overloaded with in the media. Mm-hmm. I think it's the way the media chooses to portray people of various races.
Right.
We have all these images on TV of African American gang members and gangsters and stuff like that, and I think we internalize a lot of those images.
Right.
I also think that part of the challenge, because I believe there's a big difference between, there are people that have a conscious dislike, but I think nowadays they're probably in the minority.
Okay.
And I think what we're affected now more is by the unconscious, and we're not really aware of how all these images impact us.
Okay. Holly, do you want to take a stab at this too?
Yeah, so I'm coming from the perspective of being a biracial woman. My heritage is African and then German and Irish.
Okay.
And so I've had many experiences, personally, professionally, dealing with racism. And I find that I think there, unfortunately, is quite a bit still of the conscious dislike. I think there are many people who sort of have that on the down low.
Yeah.
I also think that there are many people who, sincerely would like to improve, excuse me, their points of view, want to learn about other people. And frankly, we all have bias. I don't care what race or where you're from. We all have it. So my experience is that it's there. I agree with Jen. It's all over the media. Our presidential election process is showing us how ugly it can get very quickly in terms of conscious dislike and people capitalizing on people's biases in order to move forward an agenda. So I think that my personal experience, I would say the art world is a little bit different, but it is a microcosm of the larger world. And I find that, like you mentioned, nobody wants to be labeled a racist. Nobody wants to deal with it. And so the times that I've tried to bring it up in various contexts, let's say in an educational setting with colleagues or in an artistic setting, oftentimes people just literally do not respond. They do not want to talk about it. Right. And what that tells me is that, these are not bad people. These are people who probably identify as, being at least racially sensitive or wanting to be. But there is a sense of great discomfort and almost a sense of being unable to respond or being so frightened of responding and then being treated or perceived as racist that literally paralyzes people. And I find that really disturbing. And, of course, there are those who are, very open about their racism. I
know, right?
Interact with those.
There's some people that you look like, you still exist. You know what's coming out of your mouth. Oh, yeah. And, and I think also, racism also transcends into different communities as well. I don't know what you, and I'm speaking directly with Mari right now, I don't know what you may or may not have experienced in different communities and being, of a different ethnicity other than, white and black. I am assuming if someone is a bigot or a racist, they don't just stick with one race. They kind of paint it all with a brush. So how relevant do you find this topic in how people are treated in the Latino community or Latina community in regards to, are you experiencing some of the same challenges as well?
Yes, me being a Latina, and that I am going to say that definitely I am not a racist person, and maybe because I was not born here. I came to this country when I was already an adult, and that I never experienced any negative things from African Americans, and that it really hurt me when I am around Latinos, Latinas, and then they express themselves in a negative way about African Americans without having the opportunity to be around different races and to know that we are equal.
Right.
And that if you experience having a friend and knowing that it is beautiful to have all kinds of friends.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And really hurt me when I heard negative comments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely understand that. I grew up in a, I'll make one more comment and then we'll get started. Sorry, Jennifer, she's so patient. Jennifer is so patient. I grew up in the Midwest. I've only been out in California since the year 2000. And so, people, that are from the Midwest are wonderful, beautiful people. I don't want to cast a negative light on people from the Midwest, but I also want to be quite honest. Okay? Growing up in the Midwest, I heard racial slurs. Mm-hmm. I saw how the news portrayed the black culture as a lesser culture. I saw in the living situations where it was segregated. Mm-hmm. The whites lived in this area, the blacks lived in this area. There was not a lot of racial diversity. There was a small area in University City and downtown area, Central West End, and it was, Holly, I think you'll appreciate this. It was an arts district where there was a lot of curiosity, love, acceptance, tolerance, whatever word you want to use, and expression. So I've experienced and seen things that, people that are white like me have done that I have been in total disagreement with. And I always felt kind of like an oddball because I didn't have that same mentality. So again, not labeling everybody in the Midwest, but this article talks about, how, white people are afraid to say, hey, I've heard this, I've said this, I've done this. Well, I don't use racial slurs, but I have been a witness to that. I've been a witness to just plain ignorance of somebody, being in a group of people and there be people of different ethnicities in there and they're going to tell a black joke. And I'm like, really? That's stupid. Yeah. But, yeah, so it's we all have a different background and a different experience. And my intention for today is just to open up conversation. So that if someone is saying, you know what, I've done this before, but I know better now, or I've seen this before, but I never agreed with it, just to open it up, because if you don't talk about ignorance, and if you don't talk about ignorance in the sense of not knowing better because you believe the damn media, okay, or you may have had like one experience and you paint everything with the same brush. I just, having an open dialogue and looking at a person as a person to start with that happens to be white, that happens to be African American, that happens to be a Latina. I think that premise is a good place to start, and then we can just kind of kick the door open for more mutual respect and conversation. Mm-hmm. But go ahead, Jennifer, because I don't want to take up all your time.
I do want to kind of talk a little bit about what my motivation for initiating this discussion. And for me, it was about the response from the white community to the deaths of young black males at the hands of the police. I felt like there was a lack of empathy, a tendency to blame the victim. If you contrast the way the police handled Dylan Roof after he killed 9 African-American people, it was a very calm arrest. Yeah. And then you contrast that with Sandra Bland's traffic stop, where she was basically beaten and killed, for talking back. Exactly. And I think that you can have black friends, you can have Latino friends, and still have a little bit of an expectation that, well, I'm more comfortable with an African American who isn't as loud, or I'm more comfortable with someone that's more soft-spoken, and perceiving outspokenness among African Americans as being sassy, as being disrespectful, and I think that's where we see what I see, having seen in the criminal justice system, is a very distinct perception that the way an African American communicates, unless it's really, really, really subdued, they're perceived as being too sassy, too aggressive, even if they're not.
And see, that labeling that transpires as, you working in the criminal justice system, I don't think a lot of times it's taken into consideration that there is, first of all, you could have a person, I'm loud. Okay, so I'm definitely perceived as sassy, but the difference between me being loud and someone of African American being loud is they're going to get labeled, oh, you're so black. Okay, but I don't get labeled that. They're, oh, Tracy, she's just loud and sassy. So it's, I really, that irks me that labeling transpires, and especially in the criminal justice community, if you've got someone that, we don't know what their background is, we don't know what they've experienced in life, and then they have to stand in front of somebody and answer for things that they may have done, but they were originally a victim of circumstance. Where's the empathy? Where's the understanding? Where is the, let's pull the labels off and look at this person as an individual. Instead of expecting them, oh, I'm only going to give this person a lighter sentence or a sentence at all if they humble themselves before me and not show any expression.
Yeah, can I jump in here, Tracy?
Yes. Absolutely, Holly. This is Holly.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say, I think, even the idea that somehow, being, whether you really are or not sassy or disrespectful is grounds for being shot by a police officer. I think it's overly militarized, that whole system, unfortunately. My sense is, of course, there are very good cops, and I definitely appreciate the police officers in my community and the hard work that they do on my behalf and on behalf of the citizens. But there are many who are, shooting first and asking questions later, and literally in response to the perception that if someone is upset or agitated and they're black, that somehow that means they're being aggressive and therefore they're a threat, and therefore the threat must be eliminated, which often results in them being killed. And it just seems like such an extreme response to, someone speaking, and frankly, who isn't upset when you're, pulled over or apprehended by the police? I would think anybody would feel uncomfortable. So to me, it's definitely about racism, and we can't ignore the history of this country. Was built on the slaves, and the treatment of the enslavement of people from Africa, and frankly the genocide, if we're going to get real, of the indigenous peoples that were here before anybody came, and the brutality that was used to keep people in line. And I still, when I see the story like the Sandra Bland situation and others, it to me it speaks to that history. It speaks to other things as well, but it speaks to the fact that we still have a lot of work to do.
Absolutely. I have to agree with you on that. I think we're going to probably take a short commercial break. So, Holly, don't hang up. We're going to, just hold on.
Nope.
And, so we're going to go into some more of the topics, that Jennifer has outlined. But also, before we hit commercial break, I just want to comment on what you were saying, Holly. I don't understand why when someone is arrested, if you are black, you are treated differently. Not that I don't understand why. Yeah, I know why. But in my heart, I don't understand why the rate that the arrests and the violence that is occurring towards the African-American male and female is happening. It is completely disproportionate to the, the white or, Hispanic, ratios at all. It makes no sense to me. And where does this subculture come from? And I'm not trying to, completely bag on police, but it's the police that are doing this. So while I don't want to be negative towards, because I know not all police are bad, but gosh, every day on Facebook, every day on the news, every day in the paper, it is constant. So, and we're only seeing a portion. I know that what we see in the news is like, 10% of what really happens? Good God. I mean, what's really happening? Yeah. So, so let me go ahead and we'll come back to that. We're going to cut to commercial. You are listening, you're listening, Tracy, on Life Conversations with Tracy here on Twilight Talk Radio, and we'll be right back.
Come on, Bobby. Use a little elbow grease and make this car really shine.
Dad, I am.
Now use the hose to really blast the underside.
Okay, Dad.
Hey, not me.
Oops. Wow, Dad. Look at how greasy the water is. And it's all going into the street.
That's why there are storm drains, I guess.
Actually, storm drains were never intended as catch-alls. Detergents, Fertilizers, pesticides, motor oil, even pet waste wash into our storm drains and go untreated right into our streams, rivers, ponds, and lakes. That's the water we drink, swim in, boat on, and enjoy. We can prevent stormwater pollution. Learn what you can do. Check the web at thinkbluemaine.org. That's thinkbluemaine.org. Think Blue. In Maine, clean water starts with you. Brought to you by Maine DEP, U.S. EPA Clean Water Act, and Think Blue Maine Partners.
It's November, and that means election month. Current and future election hopefuls are prepping speeches and rallying every resource available for the big win. Even if you aren't running for office, you can win big too by planning for retirement. When you decide to retire, the easiest and most convenient way to do it is right from the comfort of your home or office computer. Go to www.socialsecurity.gov, where you can apply for retirement benefits in as little as 15 minutes. In most cases, there are no forms to sign or documents to send. After you submit your electronic application, you're done. You can use My Social Security to obtain a copy of your Social Security statement, to check your earnings record and see estimates of the retirement, disability, and survivor benefits you and your family may receive. No matter who you are voting for this November, you should cast a ballot for yourself and elect to retire or plan for retirement online.
Hi, and welcome back. You are listening and watching Live Conversations with Tracy here on Twilight Talk Radio. Again, you can call us in. You can call in and talk with us at 909-726-7226. And our topic tonight, we've been having a really, really interesting discussion about race and about just basically getting an understanding of why things are what they are. And, I've got some great guests here. Our topic is building racial stamina, and it is an open discussion. So let me make sure. You ladies turn on the mic?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Okay, we've got, again, for those that are just joining us, we have Jennifer, we have Mari, and on the phone we have Holly. So hello again, whoever's listening. Welcome back. Welcome back. Okay, I know, Jennifer, you said you wanted to comment on something that I stated before break in regards to my frustration about,
Well, I think there definitely are issues with the police, but I think it's also important to keep in mind that the police are often called by citizens. Yeah. So it may be partially a reflection of individual police officers, but it may also be a partial reflection of people in the community that are actually seeing a person of color, as suspicious, whether they are or not.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good point. Yeah, that's true, because I guess randomly they're not going to come. Well, randomly they do stuff. Oops, I almost cussed. They do random crap. Okay, but for the most part, yeah, it is. They are being dispatched. So yeah. Okay, Mari.
Yes, and that. What I have to say about that is that it doesn't only happen to African Americans. It happened to Latinos too. The only thing is that the media only focused to African Americans, but not any other race. But I know Latinos that have
experienced the same type of treatment at the hands of police as well.
Exactly, yes. Have been beaten or have been accused, and they have been innocent. And that, like Jennifer said, they are sometimes that the neighbors are calling and they are giving a description of the person, and they have been, they describe the person as a criminal.
Exactly.
Sometimes that's what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then they, approach it from that perspective. Mm-hmm. Instead of, checking out a situation, they approach it knowing, okay, I'm going to shoot somebody.
Exactly.
So it's ridiculous. Yeah. Okay, Jen, where are we now? Our next topic we're going to go and talk about, we have a really nice outline. Of course, I have mine on my computer. So what about, are we on structural interpretations of racism and defining white privilege? Do you want to do that?
Yes, I was actually moving on to the next topic, barriers to open dialogue. But
perfect. Because we did kind of talk a little bit about,
I think the police, the over-incarceration, that is all a part of the structural racism, whereas the individual I see more as the actual dislike. For example, a friend of my mother's, we went camping, and she was staying in a motel. She saw black children in the motel and actually changed motels. So to me, that is a very individual form of racism.
Absolutely.
But I would like to, I think, move on to the barriers to open dialogue, because what I'm seeing is, as a white woman, I'm seeing a lot of defensiveness in the white community. And I think there are a lot of reasons for that. Dr. D'Angelo coins the term white fragility. And I think it has to do with the not wanting to be labeled racist. But I also think that the term white privilege sometimes is misinterpreted. It's not about financial privilege. It's about, to me, it's about being able to go into a store and go shopping and not have to worry about being followed by a security guard.
Right.
It's about white parents not having to worry constantly that their child is going to get shot by a cop, or is going to get shot by a store owner, or is going, that is going to be perceived as a criminal. So to me, it's, and I think too, even whenever there's a mass murder that's committed by a white person, everybody's like, that person is mentally ill.
Right.
Maybe they are, maybe they aren't.
Not, but that empathy is there for the mass murderer. That is not there for other situations, which is insane. And
if it's committed by an African American, there's almost just this assumption that the person's guilty, or that they're a gang member or whatever. And so, but I think I'd also like to hear from the other panelists of what are some of the reactions that they find to make it that creates a barrier.
Okay. Holly, you want to go ahead?
Well, I'll jump in, sure. So, I was thinking about, I don't know if you all are familiar with Frantz Fanon. He was a Algerian revolutionary and also a psychotherapist. And he talked about how the colonial society, and he's, of course, dealing with Algeria, which was colonized by France, talking about how the state of colonialism and even post-colonialism is undesirable in terms of mental health, among other things, and that it's as difficult for the African American or the person that's been colonized as it is for the colonizer in different ways. Okay. So to me, the idea of white privilege also speaks to a psychological problem with one being challenged. If you're in a system where you are automatically privileged, even having that brought to your attention and being challenged for that, I think is distressing for some people simply because they're not used to it. Or if there's a sense of actually feeling that the privilege is justified, then of course there's going to be some anger. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, there are people who are really struggling with this and don't know what to do with it. And so you get the defensiveness, or you get the paralysis, the literal inability to say anything for fear, I suppose, and perhaps, embarrassment, and I'm sure a whole host of emotions. But I think the point for me is just that it's hard on everybody, and, for our society to improve, especially around issues of race and culture, the benefit is for everyone, and so I think that's something else that people need to be reminded of. It's not just like suddenly it's going to be great for blacks or Latinos, if the pressure's off, let's say, but that it makes our culture stronger and better, more ethical, which is a good goal to have.
Absolutely. Agreed. Mari?
Well, my opinion is that, and maybe my opinion is a little bit different, but maybe it's because I am a Latina, but in any way I want to defend the white people in America. But I work for many years in Santa Monica around mostly white. And I never experienced anyone disrespecting any African Americans or saying anything negative. Maybe they kept up to themselves, but I never heard any negative comments or anything. But now that I work in Inglewood, it's a different story. I was thinking yesterday that in the building that I work right now, I heard African Americans using different, like the N-word between each other, and sometimes I am in the elevator and they are disrespecting themselves. And then I hear more about the whites and the blacks, and all these negative things now that I live in. Of course, I live in Inglewood and I work in Inglewood, but I think that we need to learn how to embrace each other and how to love each other, and that we need to talk more about being positive, and instead of putting every day in the media the whites hate the blacks and the blacks hate the white. And that's my opinion. That's my honest opinion, because that's my experience.
Thank you. Thank you for being so honest and sharing that, because that experience is definitely indicative to what that you have with yourself. And when you were talking about being in Santa Monica and you not hearing that, the thought that came to my mind, two thoughts came to my mind. One, in Santa Monica, what type of, there's something called overt and covert racism. And overt racism is when an individual is vocally and demonstrative in their racism. But covert racism is something that is more systemic. It's something that is not outwardly shared, but it has permeated the system, so that the people that are not people of color, Black, Latino, for the sake of this discussion, are actually able to manage that system being covertly racist, so that they can ensure that they have the power. So I am not surprised that in the, again, not labeling people in Santa Monica, but I'm not surprised that in Santa Monica you may not have experienced overt racism, okay? I think in a lot of different communities where there is some sort of affluence, that they will keep things on a certain level in order not to reveal their true selves. Holly, you can jump in anytime.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking it was interesting to me to even, think about the demographics difference between Santa Monica and Inglewood. I don't have any specific numbers, but the assumption I have is that Santa Monica would be a largely Caucasian population with, various others, and that Inglewood, I believe, actually is known as a black community, although it actually, I believe, is becoming more Latino. And historically, prior to blacks or Latinos moving into the community, it was actually a white community.
Exactly.
Which is interesting. Yeah, but I think you make a really good point about the covert versus the overt, because I do think that happens quite a bit. And also, I think, Mari, I wanted to address what you talked about, the African Americans, using negative language towards themselves, and I imagine specifically the N-word. And I think that, it's uncomfortable to hear. My sense of that is that it's a way for people to, it can be several things. It can be a way to try to diffuse the power of that hateful language by taking the word and using it. And it also can be a form of self-hatred, depending on the context and who's using the language. So it's very complex and difficult. But with Tracy, I'm not surprised either to hear that. I think that, again, being an artist and, being in environments where you have people who are quote unquote liberal, people who are of a certain socioeconomic status, again, not, to malign anyone in particular, but that there is a tendency to keep that stuff quiet, and that the people themselves, so quiet, in fact, that the person themselves may not even be aware that of their own biases.
Right. Yes.
Right.
But I usually, what I do, usually with respect, when I hear those comments, usually I let them know, because I have some friends that they have been fired from their jobs because using some languages that are, or words that are not accepted, or people that have been beaten because they say the words that African Americans don't want other races to use. But then with respect, I let them know, why are you putting yourself down?
Right.
Usually, because definitely that's the kind of person that I am, that I have to speak up because sometimes maybe their parents use that kind of language and nobody told them that was not acceptable, and that there goes me, that my daughters, they tell me, Mom, be careful, but I don't feel any fear, because I don't see African Americans are being aggressive or abusive or anything. No, I get along, and usually they tell me, you're right. And I say, no, I know I am right. I like that. Oh, gosh.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that perspective. It's always good to have, another way of looking at things, and being outspoken takes some courage. So I can definitely respect that.
And I am outspoken.
Okay, where are we? Do we want to do the building racial stamina now, or do you want to continue on the open dialogue about race?
I just wanted to bring up just a little bit more on the white fragility and what that looks like.
Okay, very good.
I know some of the points that Dr. D'Angelo brought up is, do not give me feedback on my racism under any circumstances. Proper tone is crucial. Feedback must be given calmly. There must be trust between us. Our relationship must be issue-free. One of the things I've noticed is that when people of color bring up experiences of racism, they're often accused of playing the race card.
Right.
So to me, those are kind of examples of how our white society tries to stifle the discussion. And I think the whole concept of white privilege, it even affects the discussion on race, because it's the white people that are in control of the discussion, or want to be in control of the discussion. I mean, if you look at movies that deal with issues of race, there's always a white hero. There's always someone that is fighting the good fight for the people of color. And that great white hope. That makes me crazy too. Yeah, that in quotations, the great white hope that, saves the day for all the minorities. It's like, are you kidding me? Yeah. Oh yeah. Don't get me started. No, we need another hour. We do. I warned you it would go by very quickly. Yeah, we're definitely, I can see we definitely need to have a second panel, a follow-up panel discussion about this that we will definitely schedule. But Jennifer, one of the things that you brought up is don't give me feedback on my racism under any circumstance. And that's so true. I have seen it even out here when an act of violence happens to a black person, and then a white person will be questioning what that person did to deserve it. Yeah.
And it is it's, to me, it's disturbing because this is a victim. I don't really care. I didn't see what they did, if they did. Okay, let's assume they didn't do anything, but the assumption is, oh, you did something to deserve it. So let's go and give the benefit of the doubt that they were a victim of circumstance and experienced an act of violence. For nothing, they perpetuated themselves. Why can that not be how certain people think? Why is it always the blame game to the victim?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think in my experience, it seems to me there's always this comparing of suffering. Like I'm suffering, and so, and it's almost like any expression of dissatisfaction with white society is perceived as kind of reverse racism. But I think too, I think it's so ingrained, people's perceptions of people of color as being associated with crime. It's so ingrained that you're not even aware of it. You're not even aware that the first thing. I mean, I've even caught myself. If I see a group of young African American men dressed in sagging pants, I go on guard, and I have to really say, I have to consciously say, I don't know these people, and most of the time they're just hanging out, doing whatever they're doing, and nothing ends up happening.
Right.
But I think we need to get more comfortable in saying that. I think as white people, we need to take responsibility and just say, you know what? As humans, we categorize people. That is how our minds process all the information. And I think some of the glut of information that we're getting has really made us, in a way, do that more, to where we have to put people in boxes. And I think instead of calling each other racist, it's like, okay, you're human and you're making a mistake. And I think it would be revolutionary if a white person, when confronted on saying something that's inappropriate, would just stop and say, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out to me, and I'm sorry. And I think that it would really change the tone of the discussion.
But don't you think, Jennifer, that what you just said about approaching a group of African Americans that they are dressed in saggy pants, don't you think that is not about color? Don't you think it's about the way that they are dressed and the way that they are presenting themselves to the society? Because that happened to me with Latinos or with whites. It's depending the way that people are presenting themselves to society. If you are approaching a group of people that they are dressed like I will call normal, do you feel the same vibe just because of their color? If they are not dressed in a saggy pants?
I see your point, and I have to say I have the same reaction. If I see skinheads, I get just as scared. If I see white skinheads, I get scared. In fact, sometimes they scare me more than the African American kids in the saggy pants. But I do.
Oh, the tats. Yeah. Okay.
I do think you're. I mean, I think it's everything. I mean, I think a person in saggy pants can be harmless, and they can be harmful. It just depends. But I guess my point is, I think I lost what my point is.
That's okay. I hear, it's okay. I hear Holly. Holly, I got to hear you. Holly, please. Because I have about a 20-minute dialogue that I wish I could say right now, but Holly, I think it's very important to get your perspective on what Jennifer said.
I think so. I mean, I do that too. I think there's lots of layers to that. You know, seeing a group of whoever the people are and feeling uncomfortable. It can be, it could be gender-based. It could be a woman being alone and seeing a group of men that is potentially threatening. Oops, sorry, my dog.
It's okay. Hi, baby.
They want to
stop that. He wants to talk. He wants to get it out.
Exactly.
But anyways, I think there's that, and then I think the other thing is we have to think about generational differences and influences in fashion. For example, hip hop. So
yes.
If you're walking around Inglewood, pretty much most young men are wearing pants that are baggy or to the point where they're showing their underwear, like that's the style.
Mm-hmm.
So whether or not they're a gang member, is a whole other conversation, or whether or not they're even a threat.
Right.
I teach at an art school where we've got people in every possible combination of clothing, hair color, piercings, tattoos, you name it. I guess because of that, maybe I'm a little bit less uncomfortable, but I think part of that is, I do it too. If I see a group of young black men and I'm, biracial, I may feel uncomfortable. It depends on the number of factors. Where am I? What time of day is it? Am I alone? Do I feel vulnerable? Are they watching me? If they're not paying any attention, they're just hanging out, that's a whole different thing. So, yeah, it's so complicated. But, I think, Jen, the idea that you mentioned earlier about that if you talk to someone, white or otherwise, and point out perhaps something that they said or did that was perceived as racist, that wow, if that person said thanks for pointing that out, what a different conversation we would have, what a different world we would have.
You know what? And I think when you said that, thank you, Holly, Jennifer, when you said that, that's kind of like the crux of what all this is about, is to create that awareness that this is transpiring, that white privilege is transpiring, that white people basically have some ignorance. And instead of demonizing them for being ignorant, giving them an opportunity to say, I didn't realize. Oh, I'm sorry. Or in opening the dialogue so that a lesson can be learned versus them being labeled and the cycle continues. Because in order to break a pattern, you have to break outside of that circle or that cycle or that box. So if each side is still doing the blaming and the name calling and the labeling, then you perpetuate that cycle. So, Jennifer, you're a game changer, to be honest with you. And, even approaching this and being as transparent as you were, expressing your thoughts and feelings. Mari, my God, okay, I definitely appreciate your perspective, too, because it crosses, other racial barriers and, how people think differently coming into this country as an adult. I have the Midwest versus West Coast perspective, which is, kind of intermingled. And, Holly has the wonderful perspective of being a person in the art community where I feel there's more tolerance and acceptance and curiosity about knowing people because it's the individuality is celebrated more so than the stereotype.
Exactly.
So, yes, awesome. It looks like we got like 30 seconds left to close down the show. So I want to give a big thank you to my calling guest, Holly, and to you,
Thank
Jen.
you for having me.
Oh, I so appreciate you being here. And so we will be contacting you again. This is not over.
Thank you, Tracy, for letting me do this.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you, Jennifer, for
inviting me. Thank you, Mari. Thank you for being on the show, ladies. I felt that this was a very necessary discussion with a very necessary topic. Woo, child. All right, so we just got another minute added. Yay! Okay, so let me just kind of tie it all together. I sometimes I feel like I was born in the wrong generation because if it was the 60s, I would be marching. Absolutely. My knees at 48 do not allow that to happen. But my marching days are over. But
I probably be dead.
Yeah.
I am like the one that the person that have to express himself.
Yes.
I have to express my feelings
and I appreciate that because there is a necessity for all of our voices because we bring a different message and we bring a different delivery and we have our own set of gifts and influences. So, again, we're going to table this for another time. But I appreciate the topic and the conversation. And to our listeners out there, I know we didn't get a chance to take any callers, but that's okay. If you have anything to say or any comments to say, go to my Facebook page, Live Conversations with Tracy. And you can also go to the station page, twilighttalkradio.com, and leave a note, leave an interest, leave a like, however you want to do it. My email address is tracytalks, TRACIE talks, @hotmail.com. And you can reach out to me with show ideas or comments or questions, anything of that nature. So, listeners, a big thank you for tuning in tonight, and you keep the show going as well as my guests. So if I was to say a parting statement, it would be for me personally that stay open and don't label. And stay open and don't label. So thank you all. You've been listening to and watching Live Conversations with Tracy here on Twilight Talk Radio. Until next time, be positive, be powerful, and be blessed. I am TK All Day, signing out, and good night.
Good night.
The views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the host and or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Twilight Talk Radio, its advertisers, or affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.